This is Precalculus, the functions quiz version B. So number 1, we were given f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 4, and g of x is equal to x minus 5. So first we're asked to find fg. Well, what is that? Well, we know that we can do different operations with functions, and this is just f times g, written like this. So these are all equivalent, or you can say f of x times g of x. So if you're given fg or f times g or f of x times g of x, they're all equivalent. So that means we just plug in f of x, 2x squared minus 4, and g of x, x minus 5. So what are we doing with them? Be careful to remember that we're multiplying them, so we have to use parentheses because we have binomials. Okay? From there, we can use the box method or any method of distribution we need, because we're just going to multiply these two binomials, and we get 2x cubed minus 10x squared minus 4x plus 20. Okay? And this is as simplified as it gets, because we combine like terms, and this is our answer for fg. Okay? F times g. Okay, now let's move on to part B. We're asked to find f of g of x. So remember that this is just a composition of the function g of x and f, right? So the input into our function f isn't x anymore. See how here we're given our input is x, and our output is 2x squared minus 4. Our input is a function. Okay, so first of all, when we're dealing with compositions or anything really, we always look in the innermost parentheses, right? So in the innermost parentheses we have just x. Well, we can't change that, and then we go out one parenthesis, so we're at g of x. G of x we can just substitute with x minus 5. So we keep f and these outer parentheses the same. We're just substituting g of x for x minus 5. Now we have f with the input of x minus 5. We don't have the input of x, but we have the input of x minus 5. So that means anywhere in our function f that we see x, we want to replace that with x minus 5. So we have 2 times x minus 5 squared minus 4. Okay? And we can simplify this by multiplying x minus 5 times x minus 5 because it's squared. Again, you can use distribution in any method you want, including the box method, and you get x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay? And don't forget the minus 4. You distribute that 2 in, so you get 2x squared minus 20x plus 50. Don't forget the minus 4. So finally we get 2x squared minus 20x plus 46. And this is our final answer because it's as simplified as it can get. Okay? So let's move on to the next part. Part C is asking us what is f negative 1x. Well, we know that does not mean f to the power of negative 1. It means inverse function, right? So for the inverse function, just think back about wrapping and unwrapping our gifts or our functions. So we're not asked anything about g of x, so I can just scratch this out even because we're not worried about g of x at all in this part. Okay, so how do we find the inverse function? Well, first let's look at f of x and how did it get created? How was it wrapped? Okay, so we start with just y is equal to x. We start here, right? I'm putting a sub-zero because I'm going to say the next step. So first, to create this, we square x, right? So x squared, so we square. And then what do? We multiply our x squared times 2. So we have 2x squared, so we just multiply by 2. And then finally, we're subtracting 4. y3 is equal to 2x squared minus 4. Subtract 4. Right? And you'll see now that we have our final function, that's how it was wrapped. Okay? Oops, let me fix that. That's how it was wrapped. Okay, so now we want to unwrap it. All we do is we start again at y is equal to x, and then we do the opposite of all of these things. So instead of square, we square root. Instead of multiply by 2, we divide by 2. Instead of subtract 4, we add 4. But remember, we do them in the opposite order. So it's just like we wrap the gift. Well, we have to unwrap it in the opposite order that we wrapped it in. So subtract 4, the opposite of subtract 4 is we start here now, we add 4. Now the opposite of multiply by 2 is we take this and we divide it by 2. And the opposite of square is we square root. So remember that we square root the entire thing before, right? Everything's square rooted. Not just the numerator, not just the denominator, not just x, not 4, everything together. Okay? So this, again, right here, after we're done doing all these things in the opposite order, is our inverse function. So it's square root of x plus 4 over 2. Okay, so this is number 1 on the functions quiz version B.